Welcome to Empire Building. I'm Wendy Papazan, and together with my 4 co-hosts, we bring you weekly unfiltered conversations about leadership, growing a big empire, and living on your own terms.
I'm Kimber Lovett-Mankiti. We are investors and wealth builders with over $75 million in combined net worth.
I'm Sarah Reynolds. We are visionaries who built more than 50 businesses with over $122 million in annual revenue.
I'm Tiffany Fikes. We've led thousands of people and do it all while being pretty good moms.
And I'm Seychelle Van Poole. We are your podcast to learn how to build big businesses and even bigger lives.
Hey everyone, it's Wendy and Kimber. Hey Kimber.
Hey Wendy, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you? It's so good to catch up with you.
You too, I know. I'm excited that we get a chance to dive into this topic today.
Today we're talking about burnout. So many of you are feeling it. I know I've experienced it this year a lot. My dad died earlier this year, and I just was feeling, burnt out, lethargic. I didn't feel like I was winning at anything. It's been tough.
Yeah, it has really been tough.
We wanted to do an episode on burnout.
It's interesting that you say that, right? From just like this year. Like I look up and I'm like, okay, it's summer's ending. I've got 4 boys going into 4 different schools. Like just the outlook of the fall is overwhelming. And I feel like burnout is going to be like a real thing that I need to be thinking about. And I love that we're kind of walking through 5 reasons and 5 things that you can do about it today.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, well, it's a real thing. And I think for a lot of us, it's been years of change in our industry for those of you that are in the real estate industry. And yeah, we're just tired.
Well, it's interesting when we started to talk about this and we looked at some research. And I don't know that sometimes it's like affirming or over, like when you see the research validate the feelings that you're having, right? So all the research is showing, right? Burnout's real, it's getting worse.
Yeah.
And it's even more significant for women, right? So 42% of women, 35% of men would report, even in a recent survey, that they are experiencing right now, actively burnout. And so definitely like it is something that we're just seeing those numbers increase. We saw coming out of COVID, you saw 1 in 3 women considering exiting the workforce because the just overwhelm of all the different priorities that they had, things that they were going to do. And there was sort of one little like light at the end of the burnout tunnel. And that I saw in the research was that while women are more likely to experience it, they're also more likely to take action to change it, which is maybe that 1 in 3 stat, right? Like they were like, I can't do all the things. And so I got something has to give if I'm going to juggle all the balls, especially for those that, like you're saying, Wendy, right, in a sandwich generation, you were launching kids out of high school. You're right. You had moved your dad to Texas. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 kids out of high school, moved my dad to Texas. Yeah, the whole thing. Then my dad passed away. It's a lot. It's a lot for sure. So, well, today we're going to talk about the 5 reasons you're burnout and what to do about it. And really, the first thing you need to do is we need to ask ourselves some powerful questions. So we do a lot of powerful question asking here. And the first question is, are you regularly physically and emotionally exhausted? Are you feeling it in your body? You know, so many of us are able to kind of separate that body-mind stuff, but eventually our body shows up. So if you're feeling really tired, it could be that you're not getting enough sleep, but it also could be that you're feeling burnt out.
100%. I've been having like a cold that I just can't knock. And I realized as we were going through this, I was like, wait, that's actually my body likely telling me to like, you need some recovery time, right? Like your body is going to tell you what you need and you have to be ready to listen to it.
Yep.
The second question is, are you more cynical and detached than usual? So thinking about how you would usually show up, are you showing up more kind of detached from the outcomes, less connected to it? Are you showing up more cynical and detached than you usually would?
I love this. I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and she's really struggling with some of the stuff that's happening in the real estate industry and what her local real estate office is doing. And I just feel like she was having an outsized response to it. Yeah, very cynical. So I think that's totally true. And then really number 3 is, are you feeling like all of your hard work isn't actually accomplishing anything? So I know I had a situation like that. After my dad died, I just felt like I was failing in every aspect of what I was doing, you know, including helping my dad out. That's just a hard place to be. You know, you work so hard, and then you wake up and you feel like you're not working hard enough. I mean, where do you go from there? Right? That's tough.
Well, it feels like you've put in all this effort sometimes against something and the result hasn't shown up yet.
Yeah.
And so that moment is a hard moment. Like you've put in the most amount of effort and the least amount of result has shown up. And a lot of us are seeing that definitely if you're in the real estate business, right? With units being down, 30, 40, 50% in some markets, like it can feel like you're working twice as hard to get half the result that you might have had 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
So if you answered yes to any of those, then you're in the right spot.
Yeah. And if you answered yes to 3 of them, then you're probably right here with us. So, yeah.
Welcome to the club.
Welcome to the club. All right. Well, so the number one reason you're feeling burnt out is you don't really know what matters most to you. And if you do, you aren't prioritizing it. So Kimber and I did an exercise, I don't know, with our circle not that long ago, where we actually had to pick up our phone and we had to look at all of the moments that we had captured in photos, because, what you take pictures of often is a priority for you. And then we had to open up our calendars and make sure that the things that we really felt like mattered most to us were actually in our calendar. It's just a moment for all of us where, is your priority on your schedule or not?
That's right. What's powerful about that is not only is it the priority, it's usually the thing that is filling you up. Like it's giving you the extra energy to push through the hard. And so it's not that things aren't going to be hard, like they are. That's the price we pay for living a fulfilled life. And so it's making sure that like you actually are prioritizing, scheduling, time blocking the times for the things that actually are most important to you and fill you up. So I think it's a powerful exercise. Open up your phone, just scroll back through the year. And like, I actually added a folder in my phone. It's my joy folder, and I label it. And every year I go back, just randomly throughout the year, and I just drop pictures into them. Sometimes in the moment, I know that that's like a joy moment, and I immediately put it in the folder. And so that way, when I'm having a hard moment or like it's just been a rough day, I just open it up and I just like scroll through. And just that exercise alone is recovery.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for sure, we all know you have a no problem.
I got a lot of no. Yeah.
Yeah, we all do. I love to say yes to everything. Variety is the spice of life. I love waking up and seeing my day full. And yet, for some of us during COVID, when everything was canceled, it was actually a more peaceful, joyful time for a lot of us because we didn't have all those responsibilities. So take a look at where you're spending your time. Does it align with your priorities? And instead of just adding your priorities in there, think about adding your priorities in, but then subtracting something else, right? No is a complete sentence.
I'm going to say that one more time because I think that no is a complete sentence. And I think as women, sometimes we have to actually practice that. We've done that in our HBL community. Like we've literally had people stand up and just say it because it is like, no, practice it. Yeah, it's really powerful. Yeah. And I know for me, like saying yes, I've had to force myself to like, what am I going to say no to? If I'm going to take on a new opportunity, if I'm going to join another board, if I'm going to I either need to have a who in my life that's going to take over something else, or I need to say no to something. And that's really helped me decide, like, one, is this matching my priority, or am I willing to give up something that I'm currently doing and passionate about to add this other thing on? And that's helped been just a litmus test of like, do I really want to add this thing on?
Well, and you also have to know what you're saying yes to and who you are. So I know for me, when I say yes to something, I'm kind of all in. I can't just show up and be there and have a cup of coffee and shake everybody's hands. Like I show up, I'm all in. I like to spend my time doing things, and I usually commit for a long time. So, a lot of the boards that I'm on, I end up getting on a second term. That's just who I am. I'm a very loyal, like committed person. So I need to know that about myself. So if someone asks me to be on a board, I need to think like, okay, well, this for me is probably not a 3-year commitment. It's probably a 6-year commitment. And when I'm there, I'm going to be on the committee, and I'm probably going to lead the committee, and I'm going to do like all these things. And so I have to just get rid of something like that before I can take something else like that on. So just because I know myself. Yeah.
One big mind shift around this for me was a no for me was creating an opportunity and a yes for somebody else. Mm-hmm. If I got asked to speak somewhere, I got asked to join something, and I knew I couldn't take anything else on, I literally started to look at my team. So I would literally say, I'm actually not available, but here's a person who I actually think would be amazing for that opportunity. And what I realized is it started to allow me to amplify amazing people in my world who were really excited to take on that opportunity. And it allowed us to still have a presence and still have visibility, but also like not add another thing to my plate. And so it's been a great way.
That's so good. I had a similar experience, except it was just the universe telling me that I'd made a good decision. So if you're inside of Keller Williams, you know about being on the Agent Leadership Council. And so I was on that for many years. And I turned that down. And then right after I turned it down, maybe like a couple weeks after, my very first buyer agent, who's still with Keller Williams, not on my team anymore, reached out to me. And, we're still very close. And he likes to share his wins with me. And I love to share his wins with him. And he reached out to me and he said, hey, guess what? I'm on the ALC this year. I got in.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that was just the universe telling me, yeah, Wendy, you made a great decision. Somebody else got that opportunity. And I know I probably would have been in there like, oh, this, and we're not doing that. And he was like so excited and brought the fresh energy and excitement. So I love that.
All right. Well, number 2, the reason why you might be burnt out and what you can do about it is you think you can do it all, have it all, and know it all, right? Like this perception that we actually are going to get to a place where we can like eat all the chocolate. We can have it all. We can do all the things. We can like juggle all the balls all the time.
Well, it's interesting. So a lot of us do have kind of this phenomenal energy and this phenomenal capacity to take on a lot of stuff. So a lot of you that are listening, you are that person. You are that person in your world. Like everybody comes up to you and says like, how do you do it all? Like, I don't even understand how you have the energy to do it all. I feel like it's a blessing to be kind of that person. But at the end of the day, like you just can't. Like you literally don't have the time. Everyone's only got 24 hours in a day. You can't possibly know it all. So you can't learn all the things and you can't possibly have it all. You have to make choices. So really, truly understanding that. And then we did a similar session, Kimber and I, recently this week. And this idea of time blindness came up. Did you catch that at the end? Were you there?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was so interesting because I live with 3 people with ADHD. And if you've got ADHD, there's something called time blindness. And it's this idea of you don't know how long things take. It's part of being ADHD. So some of you are like, what? Oh my gosh. This made my world a lot easier because I'm very good with time. So I know exactly how long things are going to take. I know that if I leave at a certain time, I'm going to get there like 2 minutes early. I feel like it's kind of like a spatial sense or something. But if you have ADHD, you actually feel like you can get a lot more done, or you think things are going to take a lot longer or shorter than they really do. So I don't have ADHD, so I don't have any tips for that. But I think becoming aware of that and understanding like what is actually possible to do in a day, if you are someone who does suffer from this time blindness, it's probably super valuable.
Yeah, that's a great thing because I know a lot of ourselves, our listeners, right? I've got 2 in my house as well. And so just even that awareness, right, of how that shows up and how we can sort of prepare and think about like being able to do it. It's actually the number 1 question I get as a mom, as a business leader. How do you do it all? And in just like a different world, like I feel like there was a point in time where I felt like I wore this cape of like pride of like, I juggle all these balls. And now my like answer every time somebody asks me that is I don't do it all. So this idea of like your perception of people that are high performers or that are just juggling a lot of things, how do you do it all? It also is a great realization. Every time I say it, it's a reminder for me, like you don't have to do it all.
No, you really don't. Well, I'm just curious, Kimber, what does your help look like in your world? I mean, what does your home help look like? What does your work help look like? Because you lead so many people. You got all these businesses.
My amazing chief of staff, Chimoke, who was with me for several years, transitioned earlier this year to be our VP of sales, which is a huge opportunity for her. It was amazing. And so for like 4 months, like she was trying really hard to have this one really huge opportunity and like fill in. And I was like, I think we'll be okay. And finally, like in just like probably a sheer moment of like burnout, like I just was like, I cannot do this anymore. I literally was like, we are posting an ad today. Like, right?
Yeah.
And it was the best thing that could have happened to both of us, right? Because she was trying to do it all for me and do this new opportunity. And so I have Tassie now, who's amazing. Actually, Wendy, who you met when we were in the interview process with her,
I loved her. Shout out.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. And so it's been great, right? Sometimes you look for the talent that's right around you. She had actually applied for our Lift As You Climb scholarship for women who were wanting to get into the real estate industry. And she was in the fundraising development world at a local nonprofit. And so I had interacted with her a few times through that process. And I thought like, she's a rock star. Like she's got it.
And what does she do? So she's like your chief of staff, but she's also does your personal assistant too, or yeah?
She does. Schedule is probably the biggest thing that she's doing, right? Schedule and communications. So keeping that schedule. So every day she's running a list of the priorities, keeping me up to date. She's covering meetings for me. She's providing meeting summaries. Like she's really a proxy for me as well in a lot of things. And then she actually does what I think is super helpful is a 2-week look ahead. So every Friday, she sends me a 2-week look ahead with the full schedule so that we can look ahead, see where there's conflict, see what we're going to need for meetings, see what we need to prep for. And so that's just that preparation piece makes a big difference when you're trying to manage everything.
Well, I know when I first got my first, like what I feel real assistant who was really managing my schedule on a day-to-day basis, it actually gives you so much relief to know that your schedule can be reorganized in the moment and no one is going to be disappointed. Because I think for me, I would just, in some ways, it would just be easier to squeeze everything in and have a horrible day versus like letting anybody down during my day. But now when you've got someone who's looking 2 or 3 days out, 2 or 3 weeks out, sounds like they're just saying like, oh, well, this person's fine if we move this, or we can do that, or we can do all that. And then you're still, sort of getting to everything, but in a hopefully more manageable way. I don't know if you feel the same way.
And even follow rules that we would break, right? Like, do you have lunch built in the schedule?
Yes.
Is there a buffer between meetings? Like, we're not going to box meetings back to back to back. Like,
yeah. Oh, wait, Kimber, you've got to drive 30 minutes cross town to get there.
And I love your point earlier about the sort of the time. I'm definitely somebody who like thinks that I can get anywhere in the city in Washington, D.C. right in 20 minutes when really like half the time I need 40. so it's good because she'll be like, that's not going to work. You can't do this and that together. So Cassie's on the work front. And then I have an amazing woman, Faith, who's been with us for a number of years and lives with us. And she is just a huge support for the boys because literally all of our drop-offs and pickups are a 2-person job just to get everybody to school in the mornings.
Yeah. Well, you've got 4 kids. So, well, you guys have heard me say it before, and I'll say it again, is, you need to think about your not to-do list. You need to think about where you're spending your time. Your time is your most precious asset. And if you're not thinking about it all the time, how you're spending it, then you're going to look up and you're going to have squandered it. You're going to have a life of squandered time. So take that piece of paper, tape it to your desk, get out your notes app on your phone, and at the very top of it, you write my not to-do list. And whenever you have that panicked feeling of like, I don't want to do it, it doesn't feel good, I'm not that good at it anyway, right? You're going to fire yourself from that and you're going to hire somebody who's better at it. And, think big, start small, okay? Think big. Think someday I'm going to have a full-time, basically nanny, full-time chief of staff. Like if you're Kimber, start small. What does a 5-hour-a-week assistant cost or look like for you? What would buying 5 hours of your time back look like for you? And then it goes from 5 hours to 10 hours. For most of us, buying 5 hours of a operations person maybe would cost you, let's say you're paying that person $25 an hour. What is that? $125 a week. It's about $1,000 a month. Okay. So could you buy 20 hours a month back for $1,000? Like that's a pretty good trade-off.
It's a pretty good trade-off. And I think be thoughtful about it. Like all these virtual companies will do part-time, almost all of them now do part-time options. Mm-hmm. So imagine like you could, for maybe somewhere between $500 and $750, you could have 20 hours a week of a virtual person like that's available like to help you with a lot of operational and administrative tasks. You could have an intern. We used interns a ton, right? Like we used college students. We would post an ad. We would get an intern that could help us with social media, marketing, operations support. And a lot of times that was just an intern. They were getting the opportunity to learn. So I think thinking about like you have transaction management companies if you're in the real estate world. You only use it when you have the service that you need and it buys you back time. So I think your point, Wendy, time's your most precious asset. So where can you buy back your time?
It's just never been easier to do something like that.
Never.
It's just literally never been easier. The problem is a lot of you are just doing the same old thing. You're just waking up. 85% of what we do every day is completely habitual. And you're the same way. You're just waking up doing the same thing you did yesterday. You never take time to just pause and think and write down what are those things on my not to-do list that I just don't want to do. Because if you can do that every week, right? Every month, every year, that's something I do every year. I look at all of my time. Where did I spend my time? I write it all down. And then I think, what could somebody else who's currently in my world do, right? Either they could do it 80% or probably better than me. I know myself. right? And then I'm saying like, okay, next year I'm going to give them that opportunity. I'm going to train them to be able to do that. And then that's how you create space for other things or joy, or you just create space. Like we don't need to like create space and then fill it back up.
That's right. And I think when you're doing that not to-do list, do it with a lens towards where the revenue in your life and business came from. Because likely, right, the 80-20 rule, 20% of your activity drove 80% of your revenue.
Yeah.
So if you've got something on that list that you don't love to do, it's not driving revenue. Like maybe you don't even need anybody to do it for you. You just need to say no. Like that, your habitual point. Like you might just be doing something because you've always done it. And we talk about newsletters all the time. You spend hours doing a newsletter. Well, what's your open rate? Does anybody notice if you stop doing it? If you don't enjoy it, it's taking tons of time. Stop. Like just stop.
I think so often things come to us and we just think we need to respond to them when really we can just say no. Like perfect example. So earlier today, I got a message from Dylan, who runs our amazing contracting company. And he said, hey, what do you think about getting Better Business certified? And this is a guy who's just had a lot going on this week. He's hired a bunch of new people. He's got a new project manager. Some things were kind of like blowing up in the business. And so I just responded by text. I said, okay, what's the upside and what's the downside? Right? I want to know, what is it going to cost? Like, why are we doing it? He gave me an answer. And I asked the question, I said, is there a reason that we're prioritizing this when you have a lot of other things on your plate? There's a pause, the ...
And then they go away.
Yeah. Well, and then he said, they called me. So then I was like, we don't need to do it. No, that's a no. But it's just a good example of something comes into your world, seems like a good idea. We think like the universe divined it or whatever. Just say no.
And it could be a not yet.
Yeah.
If the no gives you so much anxiety, just not yet, right? Like not right now. And so it's not going to drive the revenue. It's not giving you energy. Put it over to the side of like, maybe you come back to it, but not yet.
Yeah. Well, and I think you need to have a script for that in your world. It can look like something like maybe you'll get a message on social media, somebody asking you to do something, and you can literally say, listen, my calendar runs through email. So can you please email me this request? For some of us, Kimber, you probably get people all the time, hey, can you help coach me or talk to me or all this kind of stuff. So then what I say to them is I say, hey, can you reach out to me at this email and CC my assistant on it? And first of all, half the time they don't even do it. Half the time. So there you go, right there, easy peasy. Then you're in a more neutral state because maybe, I know for me, my default is usually yes. So if I'm scrolling through social at night and I get an opportunity, my default is going to be yes. So then I can look at it like in the morning when my default is, when my willpower is a little stronger,
a little higher.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
I love it. Well, we've hit the first two, right? You don't know what matters most. And if you do, it's not a priority. And then number two, you think, right? You've got this thought that's not true, that you can do it all, have it all, and know it all. So we're going to pause, right, Wendy, and come back on the next episode and dive into the next three.
Yeah, so tune in next week for reasons 3, 4, and 5 about why you're burned out and what you need to do about it. So we will see you then.
Thanks.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not KWRI and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.